Order, order. I will call Martin Rhodes to move the motion, and then I'll call the Minister to respond. Can I remind other members that they can only make an intervention, not a whole speech today, with permission from the member in charge? And given that this is a 30-minute wonder, there won't be any time for a conclusion speech from Martin Rhodes. Order, order. Martin Rhodes to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered financial inclusion. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Ms Hook. We need a financial system that removes barriers to accessing affordable financial products and services. Those on lower incomes, older people, those with health issues, and people with disabilities all have unique needs, which an inclusive financial system should be engineered to support. The Building Societies Association report that 14 million people have less than £100 in savings. According to Fair for All Finance, there are certainly more than 20 million people in financially vulnerable circumstances in the UK. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and also for bringing forward this really important debate. In my constituency of Southend Western Lee, nearly 30% of people who are financially vulnerable are in the squeezed and sliding group. People with mortgages and rent commitments but on low income and, most importantly, limited savings. So does he agree with me that more needs to be done to encourage saving for a rainy day, including maybe an opt-out payroll savings scheme?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I do agree that we need to do more to encourage savings, but also to encourage the income that's required for people to make those savings. The driving reason for this level of financial exclusion has been attributed to an increase in low or unstable incomes, lack of savings, life events such as loss of work or bereavement. I will give way.
And the Honourable Gentleman for Glasgow North for bringing this forward. He's absolutely brought an issue that's really important. I'm a firm advocate of the local credit unions and accessibility to affordable loans and help to learn how to save and learn better ways. Does the Honourable Gentleman agree that financial inclusions in small villages and towns must be available with sound help and advice, and that banks need to come back to the villages and stop the centralisation of services, which actually isolates people from the guidance that they need?
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his intervention. And yes, I would agree that we need to look right across the board at different ways in which people are excluded from financial services, including the geography of where they live in terms of living in smaller villages and towns. I would also agree with him about the importance of credit unions in this debate about financial inclusion. It has been reported there are 41,500 people in Glasgow North that are in financially vulnerable circumstances. This is 44% of the adult population, far higher than the national average of 38%. With financial exclusion increasing, the government must take steps to mainstream inclusive policies and practices within our financial system. And that is why I support the government's appointment of the Financial Inclusion Committee and the soon-to-be-published Financial Inclusion Strategy.
On that point, will you give way?
I will give way.
I thank the honourable member for Glasgow North for giving way and congratulate him on securing this important debate. Does he agree with me that the publication of the government's financial inclusion strategy will be welcome indeed, given the urgency of the circumstances many people are facing? For example, in my constituency of Watford, 37,000 people are affected, and we are higher than the national average in 3 major metrics of need for this vulnerability.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I do agree that the financial inclusion strategy is very much welcome as a step for developing, coordinating and implementing interventions to support financial inclusion in the UK. Subsequent policy decisions stemming from the strategy will have to work for a broad range of different groups in society. Many face financial exclusion for different reasons. These include, as I said, older people, disabled people and young people. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for raising this important subject. In Air Carrick Cumnock, 30,000 adults, 40% of the population, are financially vulnerable. That is higher than the national average, and it's hitting older residents and carers especially hard. There are too many forgotten families struggling to access credit, savings and insurance. The upcoming financial inclusion strategy is a vital chance to make sure that we make a change. I'm sure that my honourable friend will agree that we need to work with the government to ensure these communities get the financial safety nets that they need to thrive.
Thank my honourable friend for her intervention. I do agree that we need to make sure that all communities have access to financial services, despite where they are, despite who they are. Everybody needs access to those services. And I very much welcome what the Minister will say later with regard to the financial inclusion strategy in terms of achieving that. On that point, I will give way.
I hope that the honourable member agrees with me that the work that the FCA does in terms of access to cash is a useful step in the right direction. But does he agree with me that that provision should be widened to include something like face-to-face services, actually, where people can see somebody across the counter and give advice?
I certainly agree with the honourable gentleman and welcome his intervention. And in terms of, I'll come on to those issues about access to cash, but also face-to-face financial services later in my speech. While all of these groups that I've mentioned face barriers, one area of particular concern, and one I wish to focus on this morning, is financial inclusion for disabled people. On this area, I acknowledge that much of my thinking on the issue has been informed by the hard work of the advisory group, more commonly known as TAG. This is a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation run by and for people with disabilities and abilities. But specifically within Glasgow TAG, their banking campaign steering group came together in response to growing frustration among TAG members about how banking is excluding their members, both in terms of access and treatment. They have highlighted to me the very real financial exclusion that they face in everyday life. Some of the key issues that the group raised with me include, firstly, access to cash. Many members rely on cash for daily budgeting. The shift to card-only businesses and the closure of free-to-use ATMs is leaving people unable to spend their own money. Quarriers, one of Scotland's largest social care charities, reports that 76% of people with learning disabilities rely on support with their finances, and the same proportion use bank cards to withdraw cash. In my constituency, we have seen a 22% decrease in free-to-use ATMs between 2019 to 2025. This creates cash deserts, where communities are left without access to cash machines, and what cash machines they do have access to either charge for withdrawal or are based within premises with closing times. I hope the Minister will engage with this issue and acknowledge the importance of continued free access to cash for financial inclusion. The second issue they raised is discrimination in branches. TAG members shared experiences of being ignored in favour of support workers, denied access to their own accounts, or treated with suspicion. There's a strong feeling among TAG members that have spoken to me that financial institutions are not doing enough to meet their obligations under the Equality Act. I therefore ask the Minister whether the Government would consider supporting mandatory disability awareness and equality training in banking institutions to help prevent these incidents in the future. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I thank him for bringing this important topic to the House, which is very close to my heart. I've had a lot of representation from disabled constituents in Hampstead and Highgate who are very worried about similar issues that he's describing, but also about the premium, the poverty premium in the insurance market, and I'm sure he's going to touch on this in his speech. But will he agree with me that any future inclusion strategy needs to talk about the premium poverty which exists in the insurance market, especially for our disabled constituents who've been in touch and urged us to make a difference to their lives?
Thank my honourable friend for that intervention. And yes, I would agree that we need to look right across a whole range of financial services, including insurance, as well as the ones that we've already touched on, because there is that exclusion of people in terms of from one service that can quite often then lead them to being excluded from another, that then leads them to being excluded from another, that it becomes a situation where they have failed to get access to one service, means they're less likely to get access to another, and it becomes a greater problem. I will give way.
And I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. And on that topic, I wonder if my honourable friend would agree with me that it's totally unfair that many people, including many constituents of mine in Mansfield, find themselves also excluded from some of the best utility deals because they don't have a bank account, it's across many sectors, and so they're unable to pay by direct debit, effectively cuts them off from some of the best deals that are available across a whole range of products and services.
My honourable friend for his intervention. Yes, I would agree that, I think picking up on the last point, that there is a cumulative effect with regards to financial exclusion. That being excluded from one service in terms of not having access to a bank account means that you may well find yourself excluded from other financial services, such as having the ability to get direct debit as a payment for utilities or other services, which would allow for it in terms of you to get the best possible deal, as my honourable friend said. And I think that is a very big issue in terms of the cumulative impact. The last particular issue that was raised with me by TAG members was around digital exclusion and branch closures. The transition to online banking is simply not accessible for many TAG members, and the closure of local branches has made it harder to get support in person. With the closure of high street banking, we see the loss of important face-to-face contact that helps support those with learning disabilities with their access to financial activities. On this point, I support the government's work with industry to roll out at least 350 banking hubs, which provides communities with critical cash and banking services. I would welcome any reflections from the Minister in her response about what the government is doing to ensure that digitalisation does not leave people behind, and about how it is supporting the role of banking hubs. I would, however, acknowledge that for many people, digital access actually increases their ability to get services, but for others it does not. And it shows the need for a range of ways in which people can access financial services in order that everybody can have access to them.
Would the honourable member give way?
I will give way.
I thank the honourable member for bringing this debate and particularly highlighting the importance of addressing the issue of branch closures. In the market town of Halesworth in my constituency, the post office closed its doors for the final time just last Saturday. I've been pressing the post office for a replacement facility as soon as possible, whilst Barclays, which is the only bank provider in the town, is going to cease its weekly facility at the library in the coming weeks. So I think this reinforces the member's points about the importance of banking hubs as a potential solution for in-person support. Would he reiterate the importance of the Minister giving an update on speeding up this rollout of banking hubs, particularly for rural communities?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention, and I think in terms of, I would agree that, as I've already said, that there is a need for face-to-face services. It was already mentioned in terms of in the previous intervention, that many people rely on that face-to-face support, and therefore having access to banking services in that way through banking hubs is important, and I welcome the government doing that. And I look forward to what the Minister has to say about how that scheme is developed going forward. Outside of the issues that were raised with me by TAG, there are many other groups, disabled groups with particular needs. For example, blind and partially sighted people. The Royal National Institute of Blind People have reported that only 2 in 5 blind and partially sighted people manage their finances independently, and over half of those that don't say it's because of their sight loss. They cite the common reasons for this being a lack of confidence and facilities no longer being available. Other experiences of financial exclusion, they report, include not getting access to information in an accessible format, a lack of trained bank branch staff, and a lacking in digital literacy for the transition to digital banking. This example is just one of many in which how a truly inclusive financial system will have to be tailored and adaptable to the needs of a diverse range of people. These are reasons why the financial inclusion strategy must be informed and shaped by the experience of people with disabilities and abilities. The government must facilitate a proper dialogue between banks and disability groups. Disability-sensitive staff training is needed. Access to cash needs to be protected, including more free ATMs and inclusive banking hubs. And more broadly, the government must tackle barriers to individual and households' ability to access affordable and appropriate financial products and services. I will give way.
To that point,
My partner is a financial advisor. She often tells me that people come to her far too late in life when they are in trouble. Would my honourable friend agree with me that we need to be more inclusive of education on finances to gear the next generation up on how to support themselves in the future and how to set up pensions and stuff like that? Thank you.
Thank my honourable friend for his intervention. I certainly do acknowledge that there is a need for financial education from an early age in terms of so that people understand the system. Because one of the areas of exclusion is, in fact, people just not understanding what services are, what particular financial products are. So we need to do work to ensure that people do understand what their options are so they can actually explore them. Even if we address all of the issues that we've raised here of financial inclusion, there remains fundamental issues of poverty and inequality within our economic system. The pervasiveness of loan sharks, lack of access for affordable credit, and the heightened cost of living crisis that have eaten into many people's savings all contribute to an exclusionary financial system. This is why I look forward to the publication of the Financial Inclusion Strategy, but also the publication of the Child Poverty Strategy, alongside action to reduce poverty, promote equitable growth, and increase opportunities for all. If we get all of this right, then we could build an inclusive financial system for all. I know the Minister takes these issues seriously, and I look forward to her response.
This House has considered financial inclusion. I call Minister Lucy Rigby to respond.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I thank my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow North, for securing this important debate and the opportunity to discuss a topic which is integral to his constituents, my constituents, and indeed all of our constituents' ability to participate in our economy, well, not just our economy, but actually society as a whole. And I thank other honourable members who've contributed to this debate. I think from the number of interventions that we've had, it's clear that this is a very, very important issue to all of us, right across the House. And I think we can agree, Madam Chair, on the importance of ensuring that everyone across the UK has access to appropriate and affordable financial products and services. And as I said, I really do appreciate the strength of feeling that there is on this issue. And I know that some members present will have had the opportunity at recent party conferences, as I did, to engage with the likes of Fair for All Finance, the Centre for Social Justice, Rooted Finance and others at party conferences. I want to pay tribute, Madam Chair, to the organisation in my honourable friend's constituency, TAG, the charitable organisation that he refers to, for the incredible work that I know they are doing to promote social inclusion for disabled people. I do recognise the importance of this work and the need to go further to ensure that our financial system works for everyone, as indeed I'll come to. As my honourable friend has set out, some of the statistics on financial inclusion in the UK are entirely sobering. 900,000 people still do not have access to a bank account. 10% of adults have no savings, and another 21% have less than £1,000 to draw on in the event of an emergency. When it comes to digital inclusion, something my honourable friend raised, 3.3 million people, or 7% of current account holders, don't bank online or use a mobile banking app. However, I believe that this government is on the cusp of making a real difference in this regard via the publication of our National Financial Inclusion Strategy. I believe that through that strategy we can open up access to the right financial services, build households' financial resilience, and indeed transform our constituents' financial well-being. But I want to stress, Madam Chair, that whilst the Treasury will be publishing the Financial Inclusion Strategy, government alone can't solve some of the issues that we've been talking about today. We need a joint effort across industry, regulators and the third sector. And that's exactly why my immediate predecessor, the Right Honourable Member for Wickham, and indeed the Member for Hampstead and Kilburn, have been developing our financial inclusion strategy with the support of a committee made up of both consumer and industry representatives. And the committee have been considering a range of barriers faced by those who are financially excluded, as well as 3 very important cross-cutting themes, which are economic abuse, mental health, and accessibility. And the latter theme is particularly relevant to the points that my honourable friend has raised. He'll appreciate that I am slightly limited in what I can say at this immediate time before the publication of the strategy, but I can confirm that the fact of accessibility being a cross-cutting theme has been important to the development of the strategy, and it's prompted the committee to look closely at the role that inclusive design can play in improving accessibility for underserved groups. And I also want to make very clear that we will be publishing the strategy before the end of the year.
Peter Swan.
I thank her for giving way. A key part of financial inclusion is actually to support our young people to be included as well and make sure that they've got the right essential skills, including financial literacy. So can I ask if she's spoken with any colleagues in education about how we can make sure that young people have the right essential skills, including financial literacy, as part of the strategy?
Chair, I'm happy to confirm to my honourable friend that we have had those discussions, and I hope that he will see in the strategy, when indeed it is published, the evidence of some of those discussions and what I hope he will consider to be a positive light. Madam Chair, I want to address the government's position on banking hub services and branch closures in response to some of the points that have been raised today, and then I'll come on to some of the other points that have been made, discrimination in branches in particular, which I think is very important to deal with, and then digital exclusion as well. Discussions of the Financial Inclusion Committee and indeed its subcommittees have reflected, as you would expect, on the fact that banking services have changed really quite remarkably in recent years, and many people, including all of our vulnerable constituents, have benefited from digital innovations that have enabled them to bank more conveniently and more securely at any time and from anywhere. And last year, the vast majority of current account holders, 93%, used online or mobile banking services, and this includes 75% of over 75s. At the same time, reliance on physical branches has declined significantly. However, what we are very clear about as a government is the importance of face-to-face banking to individuals and communities, and we're committed to championing access for all. And that is exactly why we are working closely with the banks to roll out 350 banking hubs by the end of this Parliament. Over 180 have already opened across the country, offering vital access to cash and everyday banking services. We have also worked closely with the industry to improve the services that are available at those banking hubs. For example, ensuring that customers do not have to bring their own phone or tablet to access banking support, and the commitment to trial the use of printers, enhancing accessibility. And we are committed to continue working with industry to ensure banking services in hubs deliver the support that customers require. When it comes to the location of hubs, this is something that I receive quite regular correspondence about, and honourable members will know that the location of hubs is set by the FCA's rules, which protect access to cash. And whilst the government doesn't have a role in that decision-making process, I and my predecessor have met with Link very, very regularly. Indeed, I've got a meeting with John Howes coming up, and I regularly feed in honourable members' views. Discrimination in branches, Madam Chair. I want to specifically address the experience of some of the customers whose experiences the honourable member for Glasgow North has shared. It's hard to hear, frankly, some of that, those negative experiences, and no doubt they were damaging experiences as well. I want everyone to feel valued and respected in their interactions with financial services, as indeed I know we all would wish the same. As my honourable friend knows, all service providers, including banks and building societies, are bound by the Equality Act to make reasonable adjustments where necessary. And in addition, under the FCA's consumer duty, firms must identify where customers or groups are not getting good outcomes, and they must understand why. But whilst, as I set out that framework, we'd always encourage people to contact their bank to explore reasonable adjustments to the services that they might require. And it's very important that people know if that isn't happening, they do have a right to contact the FOS. Earlier this year, the FCA published a report setting out areas for improvement in how financial services firms support customers in vulnerable circumstances, including those with learning disabilities in particular. And the FCA highlighted in that report that most firms could not evidence how they had embedded the needs of customers in vulnerable circumstances into their product design, and that is something that we are absolutely determined to see change. As I mentioned, we've been looking at the role of inclusive design in developing financial inclusion, in developing our strategy. There has been some really positive work underway to improve the way that financial services work for disabled people, and it's critical it really is critical that we build on this. So I want to just highlight briefly, Madam Chair, the work of Project Nemo, which was founded in 2024 to address digital accessibility and the underrepresentation of disabled people in financial services. Project Nemo's research demonstrates that inclusive features can both support those with learning disabilities to manage their money with greater independence and to develop products that are more accessible for all. And as I said, Madam Chair, we are absolutely determined to build on some of that good work that's gone on previously to deal with some of the issues that my honourable friend raises. Madam Chair, I want to address digital inclusion and the points that my honourable friend made in that regard, highlighting digital exclusion, which we recognise can be a very significant barrier in how consumers are able to access and use financial services products. This is exactly why digital inclusion is an area of focus within the financial inclusion strategy, and it has been specifically considered by its own subcommittee alongside issues around access to banking services. And the strategy, which honourable members will be able to see in due course, will examine what more industry and government can do to help address these problems and ensure that everyone can engage with financial services and manage their money in what we all know is an increasingly digital society. DCIT are the lead department for digital inclusion, and earlier this year published a digital inclusion action plan. It focuses on digital barriers beyond FS, including digital skills and confidence, some of the issues that have been raised today, and widening access to devices and connectivity, providing support through local communities. I've addressed, Madam Chair, the matter of financial education, but I also wanted to touch briefly on the point my honourable friend, the member for Hampstead and Highgate, raised in relation to the insurance market. And I can confirm to her that insurance is within scope of the financial inclusion strategy, and as she will know, there is other work going on, including via the Motor Insurance Task Force, which is looking at some of the issues that she raised, and specifically on the cost of motor insurance to all of our constituents. With that, Madam Chair, I just want to thank again. Yes?
Last-minute introduction, Sam Collins.
Grateful to the Minister for that. PwC analysis has shown that 1 in 3 adults in the UK struggle to access mainstream credit, largely due to poor or just thin credit files. And that's causing a huge financial inclusion problem, especially for young people trying to get a mortgage. Would the Minister meet with me to discuss some ways we can improve that situation in collaboration with industry through, for example, the reporting of rent payments to credit reference agencies?
Madam Chair, I'm more than happy to meet with my honourable friend to discuss those issues. And in fact, I said at the outset that the financial inclusion strategy is considering some cross-cutting themes. And actually the issue in relation to credit rating agencies is something which has come up across my desk outside of the scope of the strategy, but in relation to economic abuse, where he will know there are serious issues of people, women in particular, having their credit rating affected post as one of the impacts of economic abuse. That is something that I am extremely interested in, and it is something that we are looking at. Indeed, the committee is looking at as part of the financial inclusion strategy. Madam Chair, I just wanted to close by thanking the honourable member for Glasgow North for his continued championing of financial inclusion, and indeed for thanking honourable members right across this House for raising the points that they have today, but also some present are raising some of these issues around financial inclusion with me on a very regular basis, be it via correspondence or conversations that we're able to have in the voting lobby and elsewhere. And I very, very much appreciate honourable members doing that, and I would encourage them to continue to do so as we seek to address some of these very serious issues, which, as I said at the outset, affect not just our constituents' ability to engage with financial services, but frankly their ability to participate in societal life